You're watching Adam the Bull on the BetRivers Network.
I am right here on the bullpen with Adam the Bull. I was about to say something else. It's weird. I did a show with Dustin Fox today for the first time in over 2 years. If you missed it on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, check it out. Dustin's going to join me on the podcast here. We were going to bring him on this week, but it's not going to work out with his travel schedule. But I'm going to have him on maybe next week. And good to be working with him again. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be back with you here in the bullpen. Brought to you, of course, as always, by BetRivers. If you're not using the BetRivers app, what are you doing? Baseball still going on. The NFL, college football. Later this week, I'll give you all my picks in the NFL this week, including the Browns, who as of an hour ago on the BetRivers app, were a 2.5-point favorite over the Cowboys this week. And will that get to that big 3 number? I don't think it will, but we shall see. And we'll keep you up to date on BetRivers tennis, everything else you like to bet on. And folks, let me talk to you about this. BetRivers Squares are back. We talked about it last football season. It's back again. Players can play same-game parlays on college football and NFL games to earn squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Bet $10, that's it, in same-game parlays on any game with the Squares icon to earn a square. Coming up on today's podcast later, the Guardians back on track, and the Buckeyes win their first game. But we got a lot of Browns talk to get to today, and it begins with a big announcement at Cleveland Brown Stadium that nobody really cares about. I don't know. Maybe some people care about it. So this morning, I was going to record my podcast today about 8 o'clock this morning. I was ready to go. Z was ready to go. Monzo, he's never really ready to go, but he was here. And I'm like, oh, well, wait a second. The Browns are having a press conference at 11 o'clock. This could be big. It could be breaking news. Who knows? Let's do the podcast later in the day. So, of course, at 11 o'clock, their big press conference is to announce they have stadium naming rights, which who cares? I mean, I guess it's good because that's more money into the organization, more money that the Browns could potentially spend on their own instead of trying to hold up the taxpayers for a brand new stadium in Brook Park. The Browns should pay for the whole stadium by themselves, as every other owner in sports should do. The city, the county, the state should not be paying for your for-profit stadiums, ever. Unfortunately, that's been the case. Maybe the tide is turning. They just changed a rule in the NFL that 10%, teams can sell up to 10% private financing, which you can use that money to help build the stadium, but a 20-year deal with Huntington Bank. Why they needed it? I mean, they needed a press conference because Huntington Bank just paid them a lot of money, so they got to make an announcement, get all the media to ask goofball questions. And Mary Kay Cabot was on earlier today. I was talking with her, and I said, and she goes, we were talking about what could be a nickname because every time a stadium gets a sponsor name, the rest of us don't want to call it by the sponsor name. And here's the thing, all right. I am going to call it Huntington Bank Stadium today just because it's new and, that's the sponsor. Huntington Bank has paid me nothing. Huntington Bank has paid Z, who's working on the show, and Alex, who's working today. We got paid nothing by Huntington Bank. The Huntington Bank has paid the fans nothing. Huntington Bank has paid the media nothing. Now, most media members are going to suck up and just call it Huntington Bank Stadium. I'm going to call it whatever the hell I want, and so can you. I could still call it Cleveland Brown Stadium until Huntington Bank pays me personally to call it Huntington Bank Stadium. I don't need to give them free press. I'm doing it today because it's new, and I'll do it today, and that's it. So I can call it Cleveland Brown Stadium. I could call Jimmy Haslam was asked by Mary Kay, "Oh, are you guys going to have a nickname?" No, we're only calling it Huntington Bank Stadium. And then he made the dopiest comment where he said, apparently another Huntington Bank Stadium got a nickname and it didn't go well. So now we all got to find out what the hell's that's all about. But here's the thing. Every place gets a nickname. Nobody's going to call it Huntington Bank Stadium. They are going to do it in press release. They're going to force media members. The beat reporters will do it, not me. And after today, and everybody come up with your own nickname. We need a cool nickname, right? Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse became the Rock. Quicken Loans Arena became the Q. I still call Progressive Field. I sometimes say Progressive Field, but a lot of times I'll call it Jacobs Field. Call it Guardian Stadium, whatever the hell you want to call it. Till they pay us, we don't have to do anything. For Huntington Bank Stadium, we could call it the Bank. What do we think of that? The Bank? We could call it the Hunt, the Hun, the Hung. That might not be great. Whatever. Or just, keep it at Cleveland Brown Stadium, whatever you want to do. But that's their big announcement today. So no update on, they were asked about updates on the new stadium. There was nothing of that today. Two other big notes in the NFL before I get back to the Browns that broke today. Trent Williams signs a 3-year contract extension with the Niners, so now he'll be back on the field and play this week. And a 3-year extension for Cam Heyward, the veteran, excellent defensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jamar Chase remains holding in. I mean, the Bengals just embarrassingly have not been able to sign this guy. If you're not going to sign him now, then how do anybody believe they're going to sign him at all? Make him the highest paid wide receiver. You're going to do it eventually. So get on with it here. What is the problem? My guess is the problem is not the total money. It's the guaranteed money, but figure it out and get it done. But listen, they're going to continue to screw it up. That's a benefit for the Browns. So this afternoon, and that's the one good thing about delaying the podcast because of the press conference, was that you get more information as the day goes along. So when you're seeing this podcast, hopefully Tuesday night, maybe on Wednesday, I have more access to information that I wouldn't have had this morning. And one of those things is the first official depth chart got released by the Browns today, or unofficial, I should say. The first unofficial depth chart for game week. The game is 5 days away. So the Browns released their first unofficial depth chart. And on the depth chart, it obviously has the 53 guys that are on the roster. Now, it says on the bottom of the page that injured players are in brackets. So a lot of times you'll see a guy who's normally a starter listed with the first team, and there'll be brackets around his name, which means he's hurt, he's not going to play. So, even though he's the starter, he's not going to play. So the backup is essentially the number one guy for this week. Well, on this first unofficial depth chart for the Browns, there is nobody in brackets, including Jedrick Wills. He's listed as the left tackle. He is not in brackets. Jack Conklin is listed as the starting right tackle, and DeJuan Jones is listed as the backup right tackle. Here's the thing. Don't pay attention to the unofficial depth chart. People make something of this. The beat reporters make something of it. It's a nothing burger. Jedrick Wills is not starting at left tackle this week. If I need to eat my words, so be it. Jedrick Wills has not practiced once, not once, this entire offseason. Not in OTAs, not in minicamp, not in the preseason, not training camp, not, I guess I went out of order there, but we haven't seen him at all, and he hasn't practiced, and he didn't practice yesterday. I guess it's possible if he practices tomorrow, he could play this week, so we'll keep an eye on that. But I find it hard to believe that this guy has just been completely off the radar, who hasn't stepped on the field at all, is all of a sudden going to practice tomorrow. If he does, great. But I still think when it's all said and done, Jack Conklin, DeJuan Jones, Jedrick Wills, all hurt last season, all had surgeries. Conklin has been practicing for about a week. He's been practicing kind of both ways as a left tackle and a right tackle. I believe he is going to start at left tackle, and I think there's a chance he's going to start at left tackle for a while. And even though DeJuan Jones is listed as the backup, I think DeJuan Jones will start at right tackle. Now, we talked about this in the offseason. If everybody were healthy, that maybe DeJuan Jones would go back to the bench. I didn't love that idea, but it was a possibility. I assumed that if everybody were healthy, that Jack Conklin would be on the bench. But it doesn't appear to be the case. Jack Conklin just getting back to the practice field. Jedrick Wills has not practiced. And this is a mystery. I even asked Mary Kay today, from Cleveland.com. I said, what is going on with Jedrick Wills? there was no indication that he was going to miss all of the offseason, and he did. He's taking forever to come back from surgery. Has there been a setback? The team swears there's been no setback with Jedrick Wills, and yet they've given no real answers as to what's happened with him. There's something fishy. There's been something fishy about it for weeks, and it continues to be. And I don't know why the Browns refuse to give any insight as to what's going on with Jedrick Wills Jr. It's really stunning. As I mentioned, the Browns are a 2.5-point favorite this week at BetRivers. In fact, let me check it because I looked at it about an hour ago, and things change. Let's see. The Browns, they remain a 2.5-point favorite. Minus 143 on the win line. The over-under is 41.5. Obviously, the game starts at 4:25. In addition, obviously, a big storyline has been who's going to start at left tackle, and we think we know the answer now. But as a whole, there are a lot of questions heading into the season from this offense because we just haven't seen these guys play together at all. Amari Cooper hasn't played at all. Obviously, Deshaun Watson hasn't played at all. We haven't seen Jerry Jeudy. We haven't seen a lot of these guys that will be key contributors. On the offensive line, the starters have barely played. So the Browns will head into this first regular season game. The Cowboys have a very good defense and a very strong pass rush led by Micah Parsons, who, along with Myles Garrett and J.J. Watt, a few others, amongst the best pass rushers in the league. And you're going to be doing that with an offense that, in theory, will have no rhythm. Now, crazier things have happened. Would it stun me beyond belief if Deshaun Watson went out and played well week one and the offense looked good and he's hooking up with Jerry Jeudy and they're running the ball well with Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman? No, because sports are funny and you never know. For all we know, the offense seems like, the defense seems like such a sure thing and the offense seems like such a question mark. And crazier things have happened than the offense being good and the defense being bad in week one. Or maybe both are good or maybe both are bad. Who knows? There's nothing really to hold on to feel that confident in the offense. Not that it's not talented. We've talked about this a million times. The Browns have a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball. But there are some concerns about chemistry, continuity. First of all, you have almost an entire new coaching staff on the offensive side. Kevin Stefanski will remain the play caller, but all his assistant coaches, or almost all of his assistant coaches on the offensive side, including his top assistants, are all new guys. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy is new to the offense. Deontay Foreman is new to the offense. The rest of the guys are, the same, right? You got Jamari Thrash, but, who knows if he's even going to be active for the first game of the season. The rest of the offense, in terms of who's going to be starting, the rest of those guys have been here. The offensive line have all been here, and Njoku and Elijah Moore when he plays, and Jerome Ford we talked about. Pierre Strong is here. Tillman and Bell, if depending on how much they play, I don't know. I will definitely see Cedric Tillman. Either I would assume Jamari Thrash is inactive for the first week, but who can tell for sure. One of the things I've got my eye on the defensive side heading into this first week, it's a guy I've talked about quite a bit in the offseason. We talked about Zadarius Smith today on UCSS, and I'm not that high on Zadarius heading into the season. He was really interesting last year. He analytically had a very good season. In terms of traditional statistics, he had a very disappointing season. The truth is probably somewhere in between. But I am extremely high on Alex Wright. I've liked this guy since they first got him. I thought he really came on at the second half of last year. And I'm expecting him to eventually get some pretty good snap counts when it comes to defensive end. I don't think he's going to have a high tally early, but I think as the season goes along, he'll make his presence felt. And listen, the Browns are very deep on the defensive line. I mean, they've got 9 defensive linemen on the 53. Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris, Dalvin Tomlinson, very good starting 4. You got Alex Wright and Agbo Okoronkwo on the outside as your third and fourth ends. Both those guys are going to play. We know what Maurice Hurst did last year at defensive tackle. Quentin Jefferson comes over. He's a good veteran player. So your top 8 guys are all going to play. Isaiah McGuire, who's had his moments too, is their 9th guy. I don't know if he'll be active on game day. But for years, we've talked about the fact that the good teams have at least 7, if not 8, if not 9 guys that they can rotate in. And for defensive linemen, eventually that becomes a big advantage because obviously the offensive linemen are not rotating in and out. And if you keep everybody fresh, and the Browns legitimately have 4 good ends and 4 good tackles, assuming everybody's healthy, which they are right now. And that's a big advantage that the Browns have to be able to rotate those guys in, especially at defensive tackle where Tomlinson, Harris, Jefferson, and Hurst are all veteran players. And just overall, I mean, outside of Wright and Okoronkwo, I mean, they are very seasoned, I'll say it nicely, on the defensive line. So when you have older players, they're going to need to stay fresher. And so even Myles Garrett, I don't know that he's going to – I could see his as great as he is, I could see his snap counts being down a tiny bit. And I think he'll be just as effective as, if not more. But I think that's a key in keeping these guys fresh because, as I mentioned, the tackles are all older players. Adarius Smith, who we've talked about already, he's an older player. And then even at the linebacker spot, Jordan Hicks, who they brought in this year, and I think he's a good addition. I like him better than Anthony Walker. But Hicks is an older player too. And obviously at linebacker, you're not in there on every play like you may be at corner or safety, something like that. But it's going to be important because outside of Agbo, certainly Alex Wright and JOK, I mean, most of their guys that are playing up front are all, late prime or end to past the prime players, still good players, a lot of them. Obviously, Myles Garrett's still in his prime, and I'm not worried about him from an age standpoint, but a lot of the rest of the guys up front, including the front 7, including the linebacker group, are older. And so being able to have that depth to rotate is going to keep them fresher, not only in each individual game, but as the season goes along. And that's really important. I'll be interested to see how often we've talked about last week that the Browns only have 2 tight ends on the roster, something that's never been. I mean, first of all, it's unusual to have 2 tight ends, period. Most teams go with 3. But for the Browns, it's unheard of because they've always had 3. They've even had 4 at times. And it may be an indicator that the offense is going to change dramatically. We thought it might last year. It did not. With Ken Dorsey as the offensive coordinator, even though Kevin Stefanski's calling the plays, I think there is this idea that they're going to be more spread, quicker passes, and have more quick guys, more wide receivers out in patterns there. And so we'll see less. We'll certainly won't see any 3 tight end sets, which they've done plenty. We'll see less 2 tight end sets. There'll be a lot of plays where, you're 1 tight end with Njoku and 3 wide receivers out there, most of the time being Cooper, Judy, and either Moore or Tillman. But I think it's going to be noticeably different this year for the first time after the last couple of years. And I'll tell you something else on offense. I feel okay about Jerome Ford. I may have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that I think looking back at last season, I think Jerome Ford was better than I gave him credit for. The guy's not a great player, but the system the Browns run is not, or at least that they ran, was not perfect for his style of running. And when you're replacing a great player, as he did with Nick Chubb, everything gets compared to that player. So Jerome Ford seems subpar because we're comparing him to Nick Chubb, and compared to Nick Chubb, he is. But compared to the average NFL running back, I think Jerome Ford's right there. I think he's an average NFL running back. I think I looked at him as below that last year, and I don't think so. So I'm comfortable with Jerome Ford. It's his second year in the system. Obviously, Pierre Strong is back. I don't know how much we'll see of him on offense. He'll be out there on special teams. Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford listed as kick returners. Elijah Moore is the punt returner. Deontay Foreman, while he was not here, is a veteran. He's a good between the tackles runner. He can play I think he'll be able to play the Kareem Hunt role of, we need a first down, 4th and 1, give him the ball. We're on the goal line inside the 1. Let's give it to Deontay Foreman. I don't think the Browns are going to be doing too much quarterback sneaking with Deshaun Watson with all the injuries that he's accumulated over the years. So I think in those type of situations, sneak situations, and you wonder if Jameis will come in occasionally. Obviously, the Browns have done that a lot under Kevin Stefanski. They did it a lot with Jacoby Brissett, who was good at picking up that first down. And Jameis is so big, and unlike Deshaun, you're not really worried about him getting hurt. So I think there will be situations when we'll see that. All right, obviously a whole lot more on the Browns on Thursday's live show at 2. Friday, I'll put out a video where I pick all the NFL games for the week, so that's all coming up. Wanted to quickly hit on a couple of other things here. The Ohio State Buckeyes win their first game of the year. Obviously not much of a challenge playing Akron. It's really hard to judge at this point, early in the season, how good Ohio State is until, and we know this is not brain surgery here, until they start playing teams that are credible and could potentially give them a game. 52-6, you look at the stats, they look fine. Will Howard's the new quarterback for the Buckeyes this year. He went 17 of 28, 228, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The Buckeyes had trouble running the ball early, and then they got it going later. And obviously they pulled away, dominating the second half. It was a 17-3 game at halftime, and they, as is the case sometimes with the MAC schools, especially the lower tier MAC schools, they dominated the second half. But until they start playing better competition, when I don't know that we're going to get any kind of feel for how good he is and how good they are. This next game, they're playing Western Michigan. I assume they're going to be a bad team. Western Michigan finished 4-8 last year, so I don't know much of a hope for Ohio State being challenged. Let's see. And they played Wisconsin, I think. Yeah, they actually hung in that game. They only lost 28. I didn't see it, so I don't know how it went about, but they only lost 28-14 to Wisconsin. I don't know. Maybe Wisconsin's going to stink this year. I'm not up on Wisconsin. But that game was 13-7 in the fourth quarter. So we'll see. As for the Guardians, they did take 2 or 3 from the Pirates, and now they're in the middle of this big series with the Royals. They won the first game on Monday night. It was a big one, the home run from Lane Thomas. And, with Kyle Manzardo hitting 2 home runs on the day he got called up on Sunday, and Lane Thomas starting to get hot, this is really an opportunity that maybe they can lengthen the lineup. Because if Lane Thomas and Kyle Manzardo become consistent contributors, and now you're legit 1 through 7, that could make a huge, huge difference. And Lane Thomas has a track record. Manzardo's a young player. He's a good prospect, but he doesn't have a track record. Lane Thomas does. He's been a really good player the last 2 years, and he struggled since coming to Cleveland, but it's only been a few weeks. So that home run was big. He's hitting over 300 the last few games. Hopefully he's on the right path now. And we're starting to see the whole team after that bad stretch. And I know, you won the last game against the Royals. You took 2 or 3 from the Pirates. You beat the Royals again. So you've won 4 or 5. You got 2 more against the Royals. Then you got to play the Dodgers in LA, which will be really tough. Then the awful White Sox, the worst team in the history of baseball, who somehow have a 500 record against the Guardians, which is absurd. And then after that, they play all but 3 of their final games at home. They go to St. Louis for 1 series. I think it's let's see, they got 6 more. I want to say it's like 15 of their final 18 games are at home, something like that. So that's a big advantage. Guardians have a 3.5 game lead right now in the division. And after it being tied less than a week ago, 3.5 up on Minnesota, 4.5 up on Kansas City. That's huge. They got to keep it rolling. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me as always. Thanks to Big Z and Alex. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Help me get to 5,000 subscribers by the start of the season. Just a little shy of that. And I'll be back Thursday live at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, we'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. Brought to you by BetRivers. See ya.